The fate of American politics for the next decade is being determined right now in the next few months. What I mean by that is the redistricting process is already underway. State houses across the country are using the newly released 2020 census data to carve out congressional and state legislative districts that could cement political power for the next decade. And with the blessing of Chief Justice John Roberts' Supreme Court, which ruled in 2019 that federal judges do not have the power to step in and stop partisan gerrymandering, no matter how extreme, Republicans, who need to flip only 5 congressional seats to win back the House, can be as aggressive as they want to be on pure political grounds. Just a few days ago, the Republican chair of Hamilton County in Ohio, a guy named Alex Triantafilo, sent out a now-deleted tweet that read, "This won't be my most popular tweet, but Republicans should look out for Republicans when drawing the lines for apportionment. We won. Obama taught us elections have consequences. This is a red state. Treat it as such. Voters value a spine." See, it's not really about good legislation or convincing voters you'll make their lives better or anything like that. No, it's just about manipulation of the rules of the game.
We have everything working in our favor right now. We have redistricting coming up, and the Republicans control most of that process in most of the states around the country. That alone should get us the majority back.
That alone. Eric Holder is a former attorney general under President Barack Obama. He now serves as chairman of the National Democratic Redistricting Committee. And Mr. Holder, thank you so much for joining us on a very rough and dark, tragic day. I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, this is a tough day. I mean, my heart breaks. The mission in Afghanistan was never one that was clearly defined. Nation building, perhaps not something we should have engaged in. But those young people, those young soldiers today who gave their lives or who were injured, had a very defined mission. They were trying to help people get to freedom, get Americans back to this country. And it's so my thoughts and prayers are with the people who survived the attack and with the relatives of those who died.
You've been working on this issue of gerrymandering for a while, and now's the time. And I'm not sure people realize what's happening right now. Can we just start at a basic factual level, just descriptively? Who's doing this? What the fate of the country is going to be figured out by people that are going to draw a bunch of maps. Who's drawing the maps and how are they doing it?
It depends on the state. In most states, the state legislature will be drawing the lines. In some states, like in Colorado, Michigan now, Arizona, California, independent commissions will be drawing the lines. And that's why this is such an important thing. It's such an important thing to keep the public engaged in this process, especially where you've got the legislature involved in this, so that there is transparency, so that there is citizen involvement, so that people have the opportunity to see the maps that are being considered as they are being considered.
I think this is a really key point. If you've got a state with a Republican control, the one check is a public that's watching them. We use that Ohio official in the intro from Hamilton County. And there are hearings in Ohio, and Ohioans have actually been encouraged to go out to these hearings because there is essentially no check on what the Republicans in that state can do unless they show up. I want to play you a little bit of them showing up at these hearings and demanding transparency. Take a listen.
I'm here to describe how gerrymandering has diluted my vote and the votes of others.
When these districts are drawn, it have to be drawn in such a way that urban areas are represented in proportion to the population that resides in those urban areas.
Ohioans overwhelmingly support fair district rules for the state legislature, meaning we are saying with our voice and our vote that we will no longer live in congressional districts that are drawn to redline Ohio voters' choice.
Our great state cannot undertake another decade where a radical few have taken over the ability to create policy that impacts all of us.
Do you think public pressure works? Do you think it's effective and makes a difference in how these maps get made?
Well, I think it's interesting in Ohio that although they're holding these hearings are held during the day, during work hours, so they don't make it easy for people necessarily to get there. And then beyond that, they have not shared any of the maps at this point. The first maps have to be revealed on September the 1st, and nothing has been shared with the public at this point. And I do think that if you share maps, if the public has the opportunity, as those 4 citizens had the ability to get up there and talk about the principles that ought to undergird the redistricting process, if you share the maps with people, they will have the ability to comment. And Republicans know that. And that's why they don't want to share the bad maps that they're undoubtedly going to try to draw. Ohio is a kind of a Republican state, but they have a congressional delegation that is 12 Republicans, 4 Democrats. 75% of their congressional delegation is Republican. That is all as a result of gerrymandering. And that's the kind of thing that we have to protect against. And we need the people, the public, to be involved.
Yeah, that's amazing when it's 3/4 Republican in a state that, you know, is probably a +8, +9 Republican state. What are the recourses? So you've got public transparency. You can petition your government. You can show up at these hearings. What are the other recourses here? I mean, one of the things of the For the People Act was to actually put some federal guidelines, create statutory processes by which you would have nonpartisan gerrymandering. That's not going to happen in time, it looks like. So what are the recourses here to make sure that we don't see this essentially anti-democratic, power grab?
Well, I'm not giving up on the For the People Act yet. I mean, it can be passed and could be passed relatively quickly, relatively soon. Most of the states will pass, about half the states will have their maps drawn by the end of the year. So that if you get Congress to pass that bill, get it to the president by the end of September, you can have an impact. And what's important about the bill is that it bans partisan gerrymandering in drawing lines for congressional districts. Beyond that, we will have the ability to file lawsuits. You're right. As in your intro, you said that the Supreme Court, I think, disastrously said that you can't bring these cases in federal court, but we can bring the cases in state courts using state constitutions. And we have been successful in bringing those cases in Pennsylvania, in Virginia as well as in North Carolina. And so, we can bring cases based on racial gerrymandering, on the basis of partisan gerrymandering in state courts. You can bring racial gerrymandering cases in federal courts. And there's a congruence between racial gerrymandering and partisan gerrymandering. What is a racial gerrymander? They will now claim it to be nothing more than a partisan gerrymandering, right? Given what the Supreme Court has said.
Yeah, and we should be clear here. I mean, the For the People Act, right, would essentially stop this kind of arms race. It's a symmetrical process, right? The For the People Act would say, because Democrats, right? I mean, this is Kathy Hochul today saying, do you plan to use your influence to help Democrats expand the House majority through the redistricting process? Yes, she says. I'm also the leader of the New York State Democratic Party. I embrace that. Now, there's a lot of people who think, look, you can't unilaterally disarm. I know you feel a little differently than that. But the whole point is, the For the People Act would take away that from both sides and would produce these independent commissions, which have worked well in places like Colorado and Iowa.
Yeah, I'm for fairness. And if the maps are drawn in a fair way, Democrats and progressives will do just fine. Now, in New York, we should follow the population trends. New York City, a Democratic component of New York State, has increased in population. The rural areas in New York State have lost population. And so if you're going to pull out a district, you're going to decrease the number of representatives, it probably ought to come from a rural area, which probably means a couple of Republican seats there.
Former U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder, thank you as always for making time tonight, sir. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.